Aldi quietly informed its purchasing team that 9 grocery staples are being pulled, reformulated, or phased out entirely. Some of these won't return this season. A few of them won't return at all. And none of this started at your local store. It started weeks ago, behind closed doors, when purchase orders got slashed and shelf labels were programmed to count down to 0. The decision wasn't dramatic. There wasn't some emergency meeting. It was a spreadsheet adjustment, a line item crossed out, a reorder quantity set to null. That's how things disappear from stores. Not with announcements, but with quiet clerical decisions that take weeks to reach the shelf. And by the time you notice, the window to act has already narrowed. Over the course of this breakdown, I'm going to walk you through all 9, counting down to the single item at number 1 that sits in nearly every American kitchen before sunrise. There's also a sleeper pick at number 5 that's vanishing so quietly you'd walk right past it and never know. I've also added 2 bonus items that are tracking along the exact same trajectory and deserve your attention even though they didn't make the original list. Because the reality is this: very soon, there are going to be 2 types of households in this country. The ones that prepared, and the ones staring at a bare shelf, wondering what happened. You want to be in the first group, so let's get into it. Number 9. Canned vegetables. I already know your reaction. Canned corn? Canned green beans? The boring little tins that have been sitting on that bottom shelf for $1 since you were a kid? You're thinking those things are indestructible. They'll be there forever. And honestly, I would have said the same thing 6 months ago. But here's what I completely missed, and it matters. This was never about the food inside the can. It's about what the can is made of. That thin coated steel shell, the industry calls it tin plate, is something the United States barely manufactures anymore. A decade back, domestic production accounted for well over 60% of what we used. Today, that number has cratered to below 20%. The rest gets shipped in from overseas. So when steel tariffs started climbing toward the 50% mark, the cost of an empty can, not the corn, not the beans, just the container itself, started ratcheting up right alongside them. By March 2026, federal price data showed canned fruits and vegetables running roughly 7% higher year over year, while most of the grocery store was up closer to 2%. Trade groups publicly warned that manufacturers could see another 12% cost increase if those tariffs stick around. So think about that bottom shelf you never really pay attention to. That solid wall of yellow and green labels stacked deep, always just there. Now imagine it whittled down to a single row, the price sticker peeled off and reprinted twice, and then one random weekday morning, just bare metal railing where the store brand used to sit. What makes this one sting in a specific way is that nobody ever plans for it. You notice when coffee gets expensive. You notice when steak disappears. But canned vegetables are the invisible backbone of a working pantry. They're the thing you grab on a tired Tuesday when cooking from scratch feels like too much. You never think about them until the one evening you actually need them, and they're just gone. And here's the thing people don't realize. When a store brand gets discontinued, it doesn't get replaced by another cheap option. What fills that gap, if anything fills it at all, is a name brand at a higher price point. The affordable version doesn't get a successor. It just vanishes, and the shelf rearranges itself around the absence like it was never there. A woman named Carol up in Ohio mentioned to her local newspaper that she'd always kept a dozen cans of corn and green beans ready for when her grandkids visited. This spring she went to restock, and the tag said limit 4. The following week, the brand she'd been buying for years wasn't sold out. It was discontinued entirely. So here's the bottom line. That can that stayed under $1 for an entire generation is already past $1.30 in a lot of places. And if the tariff situation plays out the way analysts are projecting, another double-digit price jump is right behind it. This isn't the one to panic about. It's the one where you quietly toss a few extras into the cart on your next regular trip while they're still just sitting there. Number 8. Canned tuna. Have you noticed your canned tuna getting more expensive and somehow smaller at the same time? You're not making that up, and there's a very specific reason tied to a deadline that's approaching faster than most people realize. The majority of light tuna packed in those familiar little cans doesn't come from American waters. A massive portion is processed in Thailand and shipped stateside. For a brief window, it entered under a temporary exemption that dropped the tariff from 36% down to roughly 10%. That exemption was never designed to be permanent. Under the rule it was issued through, it expires around July 24th, 2026, which from where we're standing right now is essentially around the corner. When that exemption lapses, the cost of every single one of those imported cans doesn't gradually inch up. It jumps, all at once. And tuna isn't alone here. Canned shrimp is getting hammered by the same pressure, with anti-dumping duties stacked against suppliers across India, Vietnam, and Thailand running through 2025 and well into 2026. Walk yourself down the canned protein section. The tuna area is usually a tight wall of blue and silver, 20 cans across, perpetually full. Now picture that same section a month or two from now, spotty, full of gaps, the cheapest options completely gone, and the remaining brands wearing fresh price stickers that make you pause. Here's the part worth naming out loud. Canned tuna is what people fall back on when money gets tight. It's the dollar lunch. It's the protein you can actually count on being affordable. So when its price spikes, it hits hardest in exactly the households that have zero margin to absorb it. A retired teacher named Frank down in Arizona said he used to purchase tuna by the case for the food pantry his church operates. The case that cost him about $12 2 years ago now runs closer to $18, and the pantry has quietly started rationing portions. That's the ugly truth of it. When something like this gets more expensive, there's no cheaper alternative to switch to. It was already the cheap option. The increase doesn't get absorbed somewhere else on the shelf. It lands directly on people who are already stretching every dollar as far as it'll go. The trajectory here is straightforward and already in motion. What used to be under $1 is brushing $1.50 in plenty of stores. And once that July deadline hits, there is no soft version of what follows. If tuna is a regular part of your household, work a few extra cans into your next couple of shopping trips. Do it well before the 24th. Quick reminder, if you're getting value from this, hit the like button, drop a comment, and subscribe. It takes 2 seconds and helps more people see this before it's too late. Number 7. Orange juice. Think about a Florida orange grove at sunrise. For a century, that picture was synonymous with the American breakfast. Mile after mile of trees heavy with fruit, feeding an endless supply of juice into every refrigerator in the country. Now think about those same groves today, thinned out, half the trees removed, the survivors visibly sick. That's not an exaggeration. That's the actual harvest. Florida's orange crop for the 2025-2026 season landed at a record low of roughly 12 million boxes. To put that into perspective, you can actually feel that's the smallest Florida orange harvest since 1930. Not since the 90s, since before World War II. A tree disease that slowly starves the roots, back-to-back hurricanes, and entire groves being sold off for real estate development have piled on top of each other into a collapse that one good growing season cannot fix. Because you cannot grow a mature, fruit-bearing orange tree overnight. It takes years. Think about the juice section, that bright, glowing wall of cartons that's been there your entire life. The spot where the not-from concentrate used to sit 3 brands deep is now down to 1. The carton quietly shrank from 59 ounces to 52 while the price went up. And the label that used to say Pure Florida now reads Blend, cut with juice shipped in from Brazil and Mexico. What gets under people's skin about this one is how personal it feels. Orange juice isn't just a beverage, it's tied to memory. It's the small glass next to the plate on a Sunday morning, the thing you poured for your kids because it felt like you were doing something right. A grandmother named Rosa down in Texas said the real orange juice her family always drank has nearly doubled at her local store, and she started adding water just to stretch the carton through the week. And here's what most people don't grasp about how deep this actually goes. The disease destroying the groves, citrus greening, has no cure. Once a tree gets it, that tree is done, and it moves through a grove faster than anyone can replant. Florida used to produce well over 100 million boxes a season. 12 million is what's left. That's not a temporary dip on a spreadsheet. That's the near total collapse of an American agricultural industry happening in slow motion, while the juice case out front still looks roughly normal. For now. This is not a blip that corrects itself next year. The trees needed to reverse this don't even exist yet. The pure Florida juice you grew up drinking is quietly becoming a premium product, and what replaces it won't taste the same or cost the same. If it matters to your mornings, that's worth knowing today, not after it's gone. Number 6. Chocolate and candy. Here's something that sounds absurd and is completely factual. The candy bar sitting at the checkout is quietly becoming a luxury good. I know. It sounds ridiculous. Chocolate has been the cheap little indulgence by the register forever. The thing you throw in without even thinking about it. But the economics holding that up have broken, and they're not snapping back anytime soon. It begins with cocoa. Raw cocoa went through a historic price surge, and even as the commodity markets bounced around, the companies producing your go-to bars had already locked in higher input costs and started pushing them straight through to retail. In July 2025, Hershey publicly announced double-digit price increases, pointing directly at elevated cocoa costs. And this wasn't a single rough year. Over approximately 6 years, confectionery prices in the U.S. have climbed about 67%. Let that sink in. Nearly 70% more for the exact same shelf. Imagine the candy aisle heading into a holiday season the way it used to look. A mountain of gold, red, and brown foil, bins overflowing. Now picture the bag that held 20 pieces quietly holding 14. The full-size bar shaved noticeably thinner. The seasonal shapes that cost $3.50 a couple of years ago now, wearing tags near $8. The chocolate didn't leave the shelf. It just started giving you less while charging you more. And that's its own form of disappearing. What people feel here is a specific, small grief. Chocolate is childhood. It's the reward, the stocking stuffer, the thing a grandparent always has in a dish by the front door. A man named Walter up in Pennsylvania said he's been handing out chocolate to trick-or-treaters for 4 decades, and last Halloween, for the first time in his life, he switched to cheaper candy because the bags he always purchased had gotten too expensive to justify. And notice the mechanism underneath, because it's the same game being played across this entire list. The number printed on the tag doesn't always go up. Sometimes the package just quietly holds fewer pieces, or the bar gets shaved a fraction thinner so your eye slides past it at the register. You feel it later, at home, when the same money clearly buys less than it used to. That's shrinkflation, and with chocolate products it's now standard operating procedure every single holiday season. If there's a particular treat your family looks forward to around the holidays, the version you remember is actively being phased out. Buying ahead is no longer overthinking it. It's just paying attention. Like, comment, subscribe. 3 taps takes a second. Let's keep going because the top 5 are where it really hits. Number 5. Olive oil 37%. Hold on to that number because it's the silent reason a bottle you purchased without a second thought for years is about to become something you actually have to budget for. This is the sleeper pick I flagged at the beginning, and it's sliding off shelves so quietly that almost nobody is paying attention. Nearly every bottle of olive oil on American shelves is imported. The core of global supply sits in the Mediterranean, and Spain is the heavyweight. And Spain is in serious trouble. Industry reporting from May 2026 flagged a sharp decline in flowering and fruit set for the upcoming olive harvest, with estimates pointing to a 37% drop in that critical early productivity stage for the 2026-2027 season. Year after year of extreme heat and drought has worn the groves down to their limits, and an olive tree, just like an orange tree, doesn't recover on your schedule. These are old, slow-growing trees. A single scorched spring can set a grove back for years. Go stand in front of the oil section and actually look. That row of tall green and gold bottles that's always been generously stocked. Now picture it full of gaps, your usual brand missing, for weeks at a time. The price tag that read $9 now reading $15, then $18, with a handwritten limit sign. 2 per customer, tucked underneath what remains. Here's what catches people off guard. Olive oil feels permanent. It's the foundation of almost everything you cook, so essential you don't even register it until the bottle runs dry in the middle of a recipe and there's nothing in the cabinet behind it. A retired nurse named Elena down in Florida said she cooks the Mediterranean way she was raised on, and the good oil she's used her entire life has gone from something she grabbed without a glance to something she now hunts for on sale and rations at home. Prices that already climbed hard are set to climb again on the back of a failed bloom, and the shelf gaps that appear when a harvest comes up short don't fill back in for a very long time. This is a real one to keep a sealed backup of in the pantry, because an unopened bottle stores well, and the version you can afford right now may not be the version waiting for you next year. If this is opening your eyes, smash that like button, leave a comment with which item shocked you most, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Number 4. Wild salmon, let me tell you about a run of fish that used to be so dependable people planned their entire summer around it. Every year, Alaska's pink salmon come back by the tens of millions. And that return is a massive part of what fills the canned and pouched wild salmon you see on grocery shelves. It's been one of the most reliable things in American food. Until this year. In April 2026, Alaska's own Fish and Game Department projected a pink salmon return of around 56 million fish. The previous year that forecast was near 120 million. So in one season, the expected return got cut to less than half. Warming ocean temperatures, shifting currents, and hard biological cycles in the run have all collided at once. And when the fish don't show up, there's simply nothing to put in a can. You cannot manufacture a salmon run. Think about the canned fish section. That stack of wild, caught salmon tins and pouches that's always just been there beside the tuna. Now picture it this coming year, with wild salmon squeezed down to a thin row. The price jumps significantly, and more of the shelf quietly handed over to farmed fish flown in from overseas. A fundamentally different product at a different price point, wearing a very similar label. What people don't anticipate here is the emotional weight. For a lot of families, wild salmon was the affordable, healthy choice. The thing your doctor told you to eat more of. The good protein you could reach for without flinching. A retired fisherman named Gary out in Washington said he's watched these runs his whole life and never seen the store shelves react this way. The wild salmon he used to buy without hesitation has become a once-a-month purchase in his own household. And it's worth understanding why a single bad run sends shockwaves so far out. The pink salmon that return this year fill next year's cans and pouches. A short season now isn't just a gap on today's shelf, it's a shortage that echoes a full year into the future, rippling into the very products you'll reach for months from now, long after the headlines have moved on. A short run means a short shelf. And short shelves mean prices that step up and stay elevated until the fish decide to come back, which is entirely beyond human control. If wild salmon is part of how your family eats, setting a few tins aside now is just common sense. The affordable version is thinning out in real time. Number 3. Tomatoes. Think about the last time you cooked something involving tomatoes. Spaghetti sauce, a pot of chili, a summer sandwich. Now think about where the majority of those tomatoes actually came from, because the answer is about to hit your grocery bill in a way you can physically feel. A huge percentage of the fresh tomatoes Americans consume, along with a significant portion of what goes into canned and jarred products, crosses the border from Mexico. For decades, a trade agreement kept that pipeline cheap and consistent. Then on July 14, 2025, the United States terminated that agreement and slapped a duty of approximately 17.09% on Mexican tomatoes entering the country. 17% overnight on one of the most fundamental ingredients in the entire grocery store. Walk through the produce section and then the canned goods aisle right behind it. The tomato display, usually a heavy, overflowing red pile, is thinner and more expensive. The vine-ripened ones you preferred are suddenly $1 more per pound. Then the canned tomatoes and jarred sauces, the store brands that were the reliable, cheap foundation of 100 weeknight dinners, all quietly ticking upward. Sticker by sticker, week by week. What makes this one land hard is how invisible tomatoes are in the best way. They're in everything. They're the quiet base layer under so many meals you make without even looking at a recipe. So when they climb, they don't climb alone. They drag the entire cost of dinner upward, softly, until you look at the receipt and can't quite explain why it's higher. A father named Miguel, out in California, who cooks for a large family, said his weekly pasta sauce, the thing he's made every Sunday for years, now costs noticeably more to assemble, and he started buying canned tomatoes by the flat whenever he catches the old price. This is one of those hidden domino effects that knocks over far more than you'd expect. Tomatoes aren't just a product. They're an ingredient in hundreds of other things: pizza sauce, salsa, ketchup, soup, the jarred pasta sauce that anchors a cheap family meal. When the base ingredient rises, every single product built on it drifts up too, quietly, across the entire store. A 17% duty doesn't evaporate. It doesn't get absorbed by goodwill. It settles permanently into the price structure and becomes the new baseline. And it hits fresh, canned and jarred products all at once, across every brand on the shelf. Canned tomatoes and sauce keep for a long time in a cupboard, which makes this one of the simplest items on the whole list to get ahead of during a normal shopping trip. Real quick, like, comment, subscribe. Takes 3 seconds. Helps this reach the people who actually need to hear it. Back to the list. Bonus. Rice and dried grains. Here's one that didn't make the original 9, but deserves attention because it's moving along the exact same fault lines. Rice, particularly imported varieties like jasmine and basmati, has been climbing steadily as export restrictions, extreme weather in Southeast Asia, and rising shipping costs compound on each other. India, the world's largest rice exporter, imposed export limitations that rattled global supply, and even though some of those restrictions have loosened, the price floor has permanently shifted upward. Domestically grown rice isn't immune either. California's rice-growing regions have dealt with water allocation battles, and yields have been inconsistent. The bag of rice that was a reliable $4 staple is now sitting at $6 or $7, and the premium varieties have gone even higher. If you rely on rice as a pantry anchor, and millions of American households do, stocking a few extra bags when the price looks reasonable is one of the smartest, lowest-effort moves you can make. Dry rice stores practically forever in a cool, dry place. And don't just think about white rice. Brown rice, wild rice, and specialty grains like quinoa and farro are all feeling the same upward pressure from a combination of input costs, water scarcity, and global demand competition. The entire dried grains section is quietly repricing itself, and the people who notice early are the ones who don't get caught flat-footed. Bonus. Cooking oils beyond olive oil. While olive oil grabs the headlines, don't sleep on what's happening with other cooking oils. Soybean oil, canola, and sunflower oil have all experienced price volatility driven by overlapping pressures, drought in key growing regions, biofuel demand diverting supply, and trade tensions affecting imports. Sunflower oil supply was already disrupted by the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, one of the world's top producers, and that disruption hasn't fully resolved. The cooking oil shelf at your local store might still look full, but the prices tell the real story. The generic vegetable oil that used to be under $3 for a big bottle is now well past $4 in most markets, and the trajectory isn't flattening out. Canola oil in particular has been volatile, with Canadian growing conditions adding yet another layer of unpredictability to supply. And when one oil gets expensive, consumers switch to another, which drives up demand and price on the alternative. It's a cascading effect across the entire category. If you cook at home regularly, having an extra sealed bottle of whatever oil you use most is just practical planning. It's not hoarding, it's one extra bottle. That's just being smart. Number 2. Ground beef. I'll say this one plainly because it deserves directness. The era of cheap hamburger meat is ending, and it's not coming back for years. Not because of a single bad season, but because of something slow and structural that's been building underneath the entire American cattle industry. The national cattle herd has been shrinking for a long time, and it has now reached a level that should stop everyone in their tracks. As of January 1, 2026, the United States cattle herd stood at approximately 86.2 million head. That is the smallest it has been since 1951. Fewer cattle in this country than at any point in roughly 75 years, driven by years of drought that scorched grazing land and forced ranchers to sell off animals they could no longer afford to feed. And here's the hard truth about beef that most people don't think about. You cannot rebuild a herd quickly. It takes years to breed, raise, and bring cattle to market weight. So even if every rancher in the country decided tomorrow to start rebuilding, the supply at your store stays tight for a long time afterward. The price already reflects this. By December 2025, ground beef averaged around $6.69 per pound, up more than 19% in a single year. Think about the meat case, that long stretch of red and white packages of ground beef that's been the anchor of American weeknight cooking forever. The family packs are thinning out. The sale that used to rotate every couple of weeks just isn't showing up. The per-pound price is quietly climbing past 7, past 8, while the package itself quietly shrinks. What makes this one cut deep is that ground beef is the great equalizer in American food. It's Tuesday tacos, it's meatloaf, it's burgers on a summer evening. It's the meal that fed families through every tight stretch in modern history. Watching it slide out of easy reach feels like losing something that was supposed to be a given. A grandmother named Linda out in Missouri who feeds a big crowd every Sunday said she's already reworked half her recipes to stretch the beef with beans and rice, because a cattle herd she has zero control over has quietly rewritten what her family eats. She said the hardest part isn't even the cost, It's explaining to her grandkids why dinner looks different than it used to without making them worry about money. And pay attention to what's happening at the processing level too. When the supply of cattle shrinks, processing plants run below capacity. When they run below capacity, their per-unit costs go up, and they pass that right along to the packer, the distributor, and ultimately to you. It's a compounding problem. The fewer cattle there are, the more expensive each one becomes to process, which means the price climbs even faster than the raw shortage alone would suggest. And this is the slowest moving domino of the entire list, because biology is setting the clock here, not the market. A rancher can't make a decision today and have more beef available next month. From breeding to butcher runs years, which means the tight supply is already locked in. This one isn't bouncing back next year or the year after. The affordable ground beef era is winding down, and the smart, calm play is to buy a little extra when you spot a genuine sale and get it straight into the freezer. Because the sales themselves are what's disappearing first. Number 1. Coffee, and here we are at the one that touches nearly every household in America the moment the alarm goes off. Coffee, for most people, this isn't a luxury. It's barely even a choice. It's the first quiet ritual of the morning. The thing that's simply always there, warm, affordable, and dependable before anything else in the day has to be dealt with. And that is precisely why this one matters more than all the rest. Because this is the disappearance you will feel every single day. Here's what happened. The countries that grow the world's coffee, above all Brazil, have been devastated by drought and extreme heat that wrecked harvest after harvest. The wholesale price of raw beans exploded. By February 2025, wholesale coffee hit a record of approximately $3.54 per pound. At the retail level, coffee prices had surged roughly 41% in a single year. 41% on the one item millions of Americans absolutely refuse to give up. And a coffee tree, just like every tree on this list, does not care about your schedule. It takes years of favorable weather to recover, and the weather has not cooperated. Think about the coffee aisle. That deep brown wall of cans and bags that's felt limitless your entire life. The big can you always grabbed quietly shrank from 30 ounces to 26 to 24. The price slid from under $8 toward $12 and past it. The store brand you counted on is sold out more weeks than it's available, and a small limit sign has appeared underneath whatever stock remains. Here's the psychology that makes this one uniquely painful. Coffee is the very last small comfort people give up. They'll cut almost anything else from the budget before they let go of that first warm cup, which means when the price climbs, most households just silently absorb the hit rather than abandon the ritual. That's what makes it the perfect slow squeeze. A widower named Tom down in Georgia said the morning pot he's brewed every single day for 50 years. The routine he held on to even after losing his wife has gotten so expensive he started measuring grounds by the spoonful to make the can stretch. That's what this really comes down to. Not a commodity chart, a daily ritual getting quietly priced beyond reach. Coffee is not getting cheaper. The harvests that could fix this are years away at best, and every month, the supply tightens further. The can gets smaller, and the price pushes higher. And don't assume switching to a different brand fixes it. Every major roaster sources from the same regions. When Brazil's crop fails, it doesn't matter whether your can says Folgers or Maxwell House or the store brand, they're all pulling from the same diminished global supply. The brand is different. The shortage is the same. There's also a secondary effect worth flagging. As whole bean and ground coffee prices climb, more people shift toward instant coffee and single-serve pods as perceived cheaper alternatives. That shift increases demand on those segments, which pushes their prices up too. There's no escape hatch here. The pressure finds you wherever you go on the coffee shelf. This is the one, above every other item on this list. We're setting aside a few sealed containers now, while remnants of the old price still linger on scattered shelves, is just looking after your own mornings. Pulling it all together, strip the labels off everything I just walked through, and there are only three forces driving all of it. First, trade policy. Tariffs and duties landing on tomatoes, on tuna, on the very steel that forms the can itself. Second, a climate that stopped cooperating. The drought and heat that gutted coffee harvests, destroyed orange groves, withered olive blooms, and starved the cattle herd to a 75-year low. Third, biology. Harvests and herds that cannot be rebuilt on command. You cannot rush a tree into producing. You cannot will a salmon run into existence. You cannot breed cattle any faster than nature allows. But you are not helpless. And that's the entire point of this. Here's the plan, and it's simple. This week, quietly pick up a little extra of the items that are moving fastest. Your coffee, some ground beef for the freezer, and one sealed bottle of olive oil. Over your next 2 or 3 regular trips, fold in the shelf-stable items, canned salmon, canned tuna well before that July deadline, canned tomatoes, and canned vegetables. In the coming month, round things out with orange juice and whatever holiday chocolate your family looks forward to. Grab an extra bag of rice while you're at it. And keep an eye on your cooking oil supply. This was never about panic buying. It's about picking up a few extra of the right things, a little ahead of the crowd, on normal shopping trips you were already making. Soon there are going to be 2 kinds of households in this country. The ones who prepared when there was still time, and the ones who didn't. You just became the one that saw it coming. And that makes all the difference. Hit like, drop a comment telling me which of these surprised you the most, and which ones are already climbing at your store. And subscribe so you catch the next one before everyone else does.